Hi, crafty friends. I am so excited for our projects today. We're going to do 6 different crafts. We are going to do inexpensive, which y'all know I love. We are going to do Dollar Tree supplies, most of them. And then we're going to add in a few fun little things. So we're going to do 6 crafts. I can't remember if I said that already, but let's get started. So first up, we're going to do a Bumblebee project. And friends, this frame that I got from the Dollar Tree totally reminded of like a honeycomb. So I was like, okay, let's pair that with some of the shapes that I've had sitting around that I've bought at the Dollar Tree. And so I'm just kind of using a box cutter and I forget what that little tool is called. You think I would remember these things? Nope, not this brain. Hello, menopause brain. But anyways, we're just kind of trimming the shape that we want. This is going to be the body of the Bumblebee. And then it didn't cut smoothly, as you can see. So I'm just using a little bit of sandpaper. I love these little blocks that you can get at the Dollar Tree. And then I just wrap sandpaper around them, and it's just an easy way to do it. We're going to paint it up, and then we're going to use another shape for the wings. And I was like, okay, let's do it all in black. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start assembling it once all of the paint is dry. And well, I say all of the paint is dry as it's drying. And so then this frame, I just put, it's gold, obviously. I put a little bit of the black paint over the top of it because we're going to kind of have a little bit of a distressed look there. And then I'm going to take the, I'm just using a craft stick just to make the stripes on the Bumblebee. And all I did on that frame, friends, is once that paint dried, I just used my sandpaper. You can see where I kind of distressed it in some spots just by rubbing gently over with some sandpaper. So that's easy peasy. So we're going to paint on our stripes here. And you know, it's funny. As I start to do projects, then I start to think, oh man, we could do blah, 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 or we could do blah, blah, blah. Or sometimes when I'm painting, I'm like, oh, do I have an idea for this? Oh gosh, I think that happens more often than not. But anyways, I'm just using the back part of my paintbrush and we're just kind of putting on some dots here just to add a little bit to the wings. And then we're just going to start putting the whole thing together once we get all of these little pieces together. And I just noticed that there was a big black blob laying on the table. That was actually one of those little opener things because I'm terrible about, I put the paint lids on way too tight. And it was just one of those, you know, those little things you can get at the Dollar Tree. Anyways, if anybody was wondering, because I looked down, I was like, what is that? And then it dawned on me. Oh my gosh. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit more distressing, just a little bit. And then you saw we took the pipe cleaners and we just kind of twisted those around. And then I'm going to add some of those fun little balls to the ends of it. And then I was like, ooh, on the wings, let's kind of give them a little bit of, you know, an extra layer, like here's the end. So I just used a Sharpie and we just did that. But look how cute this is coming together. Then we're going to add on the little wings. And then what we'll end up doing is putting it in the frame. Just kind of gives that vibe of the honeycomb-ish kind of around it, but with this. And friends, these are projects that I love. First of all, they hold up great over time, but also they are super cute. So check her out. I call her her. All right, so project number 2, we're gonna do a faux stained glass project. So this was really my first time doing this. I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to turn out, but I got the frame from the Dollar Tree. It's got glass in it. And so now I just left that underneath lemons there so you could see what I'm doing. If I put it straight on my table, you'd be like, what are you doing? But I'm just kind of like laying out how I want it to look with a Sharpie marker. And you know that you could do a specific design, you could just do, you know, all sorts of shapes, however you want to do it. But I just thought, let's try it with the ruler. I'm not measuring. Who are we kidding? I'm just using it for the straight line. Friends, if you're new here, I am not a measurer. I'm more of like a just wing it kind of girl. And then if you know, if it's a little crooked, it's okay. Just tilt your head a little bit and be like, oh, that's so cute. That was exactly me and my daughter yesterday. We were hanging some pictures on the wall and they weren't exactly perfect. You know, the pictures that come with the hangers on either side of the frame. So then you got to match them up. I prefer just to move it to the center and then the hanger, and then you can just, anyway, sorry, I digress. let's continue on with the project, Bonnie. Squirrel. All right, so anyways, I'm just laying out my pattern here, just using a Sharpie. That worked really great on the glass. And then what we're going to do is take some of the puffy paint. So all I'm doing is I'm just tracing right along the lines that we created with the Sharpie marker. Now, be careful that you don't accidentally get your hand in what you've already painted. I probably should have started at the bottom and then worked towards the top. And then no, sorry. Should have worked the top to bottom, whichever way you do it. Just make sure you don't drag your hand in it. I almost did. I didn't quite, but I almost did. And I was like, oh my gosh, Bonnie. So some of you are probably like, what is that lemon thing back behind it? Again, this was just in the frame and I left it down just so you could see where I was making the lines. So once that puffy paint dries, which it did take a little time to dry, I'm just going to use some acrylic paint. And sometimes even if I will add a little bit of water to it, not a lot if I need to. It just kind of depends on the paint. Sometimes acrylic are really good and sometimes they're a little bit too thick for me. So I'm just going in and I'm just painting this how I would think it would look as a piece of stained art. So, stained art. Sorry. Stained glass. Wow. Words are hard today. Squirrels and words. Difficult. So just kind of going around, I added kind of some pink in. I'm going to add in some of this kind of light green and then that gold. I love that gold so very much. So this is just the fun part. You get to create it however you want it to look. And it's really cool because you know how in stained glass, like where I think, is that solder, what they do in between it? I know there's probably a technical term, but that puffy paint really does lend to that, which is super, super cool. So I'm going to I pulled out those little things that hold the stained glass in, just because I'm going to glue it into place just so that I know it's set in there. And we're going to do a little bit of rub and buff around the frame. Here's where you can see I'm just kind of adding some glue and we'll just lay that right in there. And then friends, I'm going to take it outside and show you how stinking cool this turned out. This would be really cool in a window, but isn't that beautiful? Oh, I just love it. All right, next up, we're going to do a faux printer's drawer project. So this little piece of wood, it had other, you've probably seen them at Dollar Tree. They have other little cutouts inside of it. So we're going to use that. It just reminded me of a printer's drawer, but I was like, wait a minute. We need to add some more wood, like shelving pieces kind of in there. So I took these craft sticks. These are the jumbo ones. I actually got these at Walmart. And I'm just going to cut them down. And this is, we're going to use these pieces to go inside to make more of the little cubbies on the faux printer's drawer. I have one of these. Actually, I think I have three now. The old school ones. And one of them I filled with old brooches. I love those that I collect that have like the rhinestones in them. So stinking fun. So there's lots of different things you can do with this. But again, I just thought this miniature one would be fun. It's really not miniature. It's more like tabletop, but it's miniature in comparison to the really big ones. So I had one as a kid. I wish I would have kept all the little tchotchkes that I had to go in that. Wouldn't that be so much fun? So I'm just going to make sure that these fit in there. I had to do a little bit of sanding on this one, and then they just kind of fit right down in there. If you need to trim it a little bit, you can. I'm going to actually use some wood glue that I got at the Dollar Tree to put these in place. You could use a little hot glue if you wanted, but I just thought, let's try the wood glue. Now you have to let it set a little bit, but I just thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. I also found this handle when I was out thrifting that was like, kind of like rusty crusty. I think it's like an old maybe handle from, I don't think like a dresser, maybe a dresser or like a drawer. Maybe it was like in, I don't know, an office space or something like that. But I thought, oh my gosh, and it's kind of oversized for this. But I thought, oh, how fun will that be at the top? You know how some of them have those little handles. I thought that will be fun. And I'm just going to hot glue that in place. It'll be easy peasy, more for decoration. But okay, so I've cut all the pieces now. And I was like, oh, I don't really want this color, so let's go with some paint, and we are going to add a little water really to thin it out, so it's more like we're staining it rather than like painting it, but you could totally do however you want it to be. So we're going to do this box itself, but we're also going to do all of the little pieces. I thought it would be easier to add them in after, only because I'm using the wood glue, which takes a bit to set. So if you were doing hot glue, you could totally put them all in place and then paint after that, however you want to do that too. So once we got it all done, add in all the pieces, I'm like, oh, hold up. Maybe, just maybe, I need to get some Q-tips out here. And then I hadn't glued them in yet. They were just in place. Just go right along the edges like that with my Q-tip, because I knew if I just put it right on there, straight out of the bottle, it would be everywhere, and I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want to have a lot of glue on either side, and the Q-tip worked so good. I was like, yay to that. So here's that little handle that I was talking about that I got a little bit of hot glue to hold it in place, and then, friends, we're going to decorate it up, but I love this. Look how cute she is. So fun. Why is everything a she? Okay, anyways, next up, we're going to do a desktop ladder. Just something, if you're like me, I love to make little vignettes when I'm decorating. And just to have this like kind of sitting behind on a table or something with just, adding it to that is just my vibe. So when I'm doing vignettes, everything's like tall stuff, short stuff, medium-sized stuff, just kind of stack it all around. But I'm going to take 4 of the canvases. I think I actually ended up using 3. Hold on, brain fart. That would be 4, Bonnie. So we'll save the canvases for later. And then I'm going to remove all of the staples. And then I'm going to pull the end off of one, because obviously on the top and the bottom of the ladder, we don't want those to be there. So you could use the bigger canvases for this if you wanted to. I know there's lots of different sizes you could do, but this is just like a really quick way to do a ladder. So I'm just cutting off some more. It was just a little bit too long for how it was going to look. But then I was like, as I was doing this, I was like, okay, so what do we want to put on this ladder? Like, how do we want it to look? And then I was like, oh, wait, remember I got the seed starter pots. So I was like, oh, we could totally add that to this. So I'm using a little bit of, or a couple of them actually, of the smaller craft sticks to go on the back, just to kind of hold everything together. And then we're going to go ahead and start painting. But back to the seed starter pots. Man, that's like a tongue twister. I'm just going to kind of put those on each one of the rungs, and then maybe put some greenery, I don't know, some flowers or something in there. I thought that would be a super cute way to do this. So I'm using some of the antiquing wax on here. You could use a stain, you could paint it, again, however you wanted it to be. But I thought with this antiquing wax, would work, because we're going to do the wood on wood, again, distressing technique, glob a bunch of paint on. We're using a piece of wood that's, I've used on something else, and we're just going to start dragging it across. And guys, it gives, it just ages it instantly, which I love. So again, some more, and we'll keep going on the sides, the back, all the things. But I just love this technique so much, and it's so stinking easy, which is even better. My one tip to you is make sure your paint is dry on the surface before you do this over the top, and then you get a better effect. So here's the seed starter pots. Again, we're just going to do a little bit of dry brushing. To those, I love how small these are. There's kind of 2 different sizes I found. The smaller ones I got at the Dollar Tree, but the bigger ones I actually got at Dollar General. And obviously they were $1 for the pack versus $1.25, which was super cool. So lots of distressing. I'm going to use some of that other paint, just kind of willy-nilly, put it all on there, just kind of get it the way I want it to look. I want it to look like these have been sitting out, not like freshly painted. We're going to add some stuff over the top. This is where I get carried away when I'm distressing. I'm like, ooh, let's add a little of this. Let's add a little of that. But anyways, once we get those all done, I'm going to take some of the metallic distressing spray and kind of go over the top of that. It'll add a nice little sheen with that metallic. It's not too over the top. It's just enough. And so I used a couple of different colors. The bronze is my favorite. Like, I love the gold, but I really love the bronze because it just gives, when it dries, really coolness. So I'm going to use some thumbtacks, and I'm just going to tack those right in and then add the flowers, and look how fun this is. All right, so up next, we are going to do a really easy napkin project. I love this little napkin, and this sign I got from the Dollar Tree, so I was like, why didn't I just paint over the top of this? Why did I rip it off there? I know, it wasn't holding in one place. It was kind of coming up all on its own. So then I was like, okay, let's just take the whole thing off. And again, could have just totally painted right over the top of this, but that's okay. So we live and learn. Here it is. When I am crafting and I mess up, I like to tell you guys, okay, maybe don't do that. It probably would have been easier just to put a little Mod Podge under the corner where that was and glued it back down, but that's okay. We are working through it. So once we get that all done, look at this little shape that I got also at the Dollar Tree. I think this is so stinking cute. And when I saw it, I was like, oh wait, I have those napkins that have the bees on it. So I was like, let's paint this, then let's put the napkin down, and then we will have a really cool sign, which I'm excited about. So we're just going to kind of start distressing a little bit here and there because again, the shape isn't going to cover the whole thing. So again, a little bit of distressing spray because friends, I'm a little addicted to distressing. I know a lot of you ask me, Bonnie, why do you distress so much? I'm like, that's just my vibe. You can totally skip that step if you are, not wanting to do that. So another way to distress, friends, is with an ink pad. This is probably this in the wood. I got to tell you, it's a tie. Wood on wood or the distress ink pad. It just gives such a cool vibe. So we're going to do the frame and then we're going to do the edges of the shape as well. And then I'm just going to use, to put the napkin down. Remember when you're using napkins, you want to make sure when you're crafting, remove all of the plies because it just lays down much nicer, whether you're using the Mod Podge technique or the no Mod Podge with the cling wrap, however you're doing it. You just want to make sure you have that thin layer to go down. But aren't these napkins cute? They are from Hobby Lobby and I just love them so very much. So we're just going to cut out the shape that we want, remove the plies on that, and then we're going to go right over the top of it. And then we can save that for later. I love that they put it on each and every one of the folded pieces on the napkin because I'm like, project. Yeah, that's me. But I also keep all of the plies, friends, for like if I'm cleaning up in the craft room or something like that. So save all the bits and pieces. It's worth it. All right, so we're going to add some Mod Podge and then we are going to lay our napkin down over the top of it. And once we get that down, you can see it doesn't perfectly cover all of the edges, which that's okay. I laid down quite a bit of Mod Podge because I was kind of hoping the ends would get wet and then I could just kind of tear it off with my finger. And it worked really great. I kind of held my finger where I didn't want it like ripped down and that worked great. You could also just wet a paintbrush and kind of dab around the edges and that pulls really nicely too. So then we're going to do a little bit of distressing on the edges with the sanding block. And I just kind of filled it in, friends, kind of however I wanted it. Added some hot glue to the back of it, stuck it right there on the sign. And I think this is so much fun. That napkin is so good. All right, up next, we are going to do a super easy wallpaper sign. This is our last project. So I got this frame from the Dollar Tree, or this sign, I should say. And I wanted to remove how the frame of it sticks up because it'll be easier to lay down not the wallpaper. What is that called? Oh, wrapping paper. There we go, wrapping. Not wall. Anyways, it's wrapping paper, friends. So if you remove that, then it just lays flat, and then you can just put it right down. You don't have to cut around the frame part of it or anything. We can just hot glue those back down over the pieces. But look, isn't this wrapping paper so cool? So I was like, hold on, let's try stick glue. I know, I probably could have used Mod Podge, but I was like, let's try some stick glue. I found like 5 of these when I was cleaning the craft rooms. I was like, we need to use these up. So we'll turn it over on there. And then all I'm going to do, once I kind of made sure everything, there was a couple little parts on the edges where I had to add a little bit more glue, but it worked great. I made sure there weren't any bubbles or anything like that. And then I just trimmed right along there just to get started. And we're just going to sand these edges. This works so stinking easy. Love it so much. So then we're going to go back once we get this whole thing sanded all the way around. It's just such a clean look. My favorite way to do it. I mean, you could totally use an X-Acto knife if you wanted to, but this is just super easy to do it. So once we get that all done, I had this high, it's like kind of like a pressed board, and I thought, ooh, let's paint this up and then put this on top to be on top of the sign, and then that wrapping paper is like in the back. And it kind of gives me like this whole like, I don't know, kitschy vibe, but I love it so much. So we'll get this whole thing painted. It kind of took a bit just because I was trying to get in all the little nooks and crannies. If I would have had spray paint in that color, I would have totally spray painted this. just to save on time. So here's those pieces that we originally took off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint these that same color that we did on the high, and then we are going to glue them back on. Now you could totally leave them however you wanted. Just make sure you dry fit them before you put them back on the sign, because the sign's not perfectly square or any of that. So just be mindful of that. Ask me how I know. Oh, so let's add a little distressed edging to this, just kind of in some areas, and then make sure, we'll just kind of set it aside, make sure that it dries a bit, because I should have gloves on, because when you are using an ink pad to distress with, you will get it all over your hands, I promise you. Yeah, ask me how I know there too. So anyways, we're just going to do it however you like. And then I thought, ooh, let's do the edges too before we put those down. That way it'll be super cute. Then I was like, let's add even more. I know, a little bit more distressing spray with the metallic, because that'll just kind of pick it up. I added a couple different colors to it as well. And then we're going to start gluing everything back down. This is where when I put the first one down, I was like, ooh, I should have dry fit it. But that's okay. We made it work. But I just love having that border. I'm glad I removed it and then put it back down, because it was so much easier than having to, use that wrapping paper and make all the cuts and all that. But anyways, we'll get this glued down. And then friends, we have a really cool piece of decor that we could do so many different decorations with in our home. I just love it. So thank you friends for watching. I'm going to show you again all of the projects, and don't forget to follow the page or subscribe to the page, I guess, for more easy DIY crafts. Thanks so much for watching.